recruiting story. We like to ask everybody their best one. There has to be one from you. You have too much. You have too many good moments where there's like there had to be somebody who thought they were going to pluck you out of LA.
Man, I got in trouble, man. Look, if I tell stories, I'm gonna get in trouble. I tell you what happened. All right, so look, you know how like players now do like the ESPN thing, right, where they pull the hats and all that. So I believe I was like one of the first dudes to do it, and I did it live on Fox Sports. And what's the Lakers announcer, McDonough? Bill McDonough. He was
Bill.
He was the host of the show. And so like I had like 30 people in my family there. It was live. And I started like they were like, yo, which college you want to go to? This one or this one? I just take a hat and I just flip it. I was just like chunking hats, you know what I mean, off the table. Boom, boom. And then I put the UCLA hat. Thought my life was gonna be cool. Everything was over. Go to college. I get a letter in the mail from Roy Williams. And he was like, yo, the whole Kansas fan base, they're upset, feel like you disrespected us. You know what I mean? And it was just like, damn, dude, like, that was like one of the first mistakes I made. You know what I mean? Just like you can burn bridges so fast, you know what I mean? And have people go from allies to enemies, you know what I mean? Like with the flip of a hat, right? And for me, it was, they told me to do it. It was supposed to be fun. And then, so I was just, from there, just kind of bad boy misperception was created.
those TV producers, man. Now I'm glad you're on the content creator side. Like, don't do that to kids.
They didn't care. Yeah, dude. Everything was just like, you got to think it was very buttoned up. It was very raw. You know what I mean? I remember at UCLA, we couldn't have a mustache. We had to shave. And the coach would come in the locker room and he'd be like, hey, man, let me
Is that bad?
You're still missing, a little touch up, got a little peach fuzz. Now it's like, dudes got tattoos on their face, neck, eyes, all kind of shit. So it's just a new era. And it's fun. It's fun to watch because you get to see these kids, how good they are, how highly skilled and highly talented they are, but also their personality and their style. And that was something that I always champion and, still do to this day.
He's the 2011 College Player of the Year, Jimmer Fredette, friend of the podcast. All right, let's go back to your recruiting days coming out of Glen Falls. Give us your best recruiting story.
Yeah, so for me, I wasn't super heavily recruited out of high school. I was from a small town, like you said. So I got recruited by two schools mainly, and offered by Siena College, which was about 45 minutes from my house, who was the head coach was Fran McCaffrey, who is now the head coach at Iowa right now. Love Fran. Unbelievable guy. Almost went to Siena just because of Fran.
Yeah, laid back guy.
Now looking back, and I was like, man, he is not as laid back as I thought he was going to be. But just he's done some good stuff over at Iowa. Played some good ball, but yeah, and then so then obviously BYU. So I took an official visit out to BYU, and my host was actually a guy. One of the guys named Brock Zylstra who played with me, but then the other one was named Jordan Cameron. And I don't know if you know that name, but he played basketball at BYU, he was going to play basketball at BYU for a year, but then he transferred and played football at USC, and was a tight end, and then ended up playing in the NFL. Was a Pro Bowl tight end for the Browns, and was a really great player. And so they took me around on my official visit, and you go do your normal stuff. You go to the gym. They take you into the locker room, which wasn't great back then. It's not like they had an amazing locker room or anything back then. We didn't even have a practice facility at BYU back then, so it wasn't a whole lot to show. But the Marriott Center was awesome. The campus was great. And then we went to dinner, and then afterwards, all right, we're going to bring you out to a house party, right? And just so you know, this is BYU, right? Like, this is not a normal house party that you think of when you go to other colleges, right? You get there, there's a bunch of people in there, they're playing, Party in the USA by Miley Cyrus and, whatever songs that it is. And they're just kind of, there's no alcohol. There's no anything that you would think of. And we're just walking around, and then all of a sudden these people just bring out these bubbles, and they start blowing all these bubbles all over the house and all over the backyard. And you're just like, what is going on? I have no idea what is going on right now. I've never seen anything like this. I'm from upstate New York. I'm used to going to a party with my friends and there being, all crazy stuff happening and going on. It's just a completely different situation, out there at BYU. It was just a weird thing, and wasn't expecting it. And, but then I ended up obviously committing to BYU a couple weeks later, just because I felt like it was the right spot for me to be. But I don't really have any other cool stories, because I only took 2 official visits. One was to Siena, and then one was to BYU. And Siena was like 40 minutes from my house, so I didn't even stay over there or anything. I just went there and visited the school and then came back. So I'm not as cool as everybody else's recruiting stories that you have on here with all the crazy stuff. But yeah, the bubbles at the BYU house is about as good as I get.
The bubbles did it for you. You know what, though? I like, we get the full scope of it. We get the whole.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
You must have known, though. You were like, I like the coaches. I want to play here. It's a higher level of Siena, or higher level in Siena. So this is just what a right.
The going out to the official visit was more of a formality than anything, right? It was more, I just wanted to experience. I hadn't really been out there much to actually experience and see what the school is like. We went to a football game, obviously, and the football at BYU is great. They have, 65,000 person stadium at BYU. It's beautiful. So that was fun to be able to experience that, be on the field and feel that energy. The fans out there are really great. They love their sports. It's a cool town. It's bigger than people think, but it is a fun college town. There's like 60,000 students in Provo because of the University of Utah Valley University, which is right up the road. And there's about 30,000 kids there too. So it's a fun place to be. There's a lot of things going on. It's not for everybody, but it was for me.
I'll never forget my first visit there. By the way, I'd say that the backdrop of that football stadium is probably the best in the country.
Unreal.
It has to be seen, has to be experienced. It was, if you just love college football and the atmosphere, it's probably one of my favorite places I've ever been. Yeah. I would also say on a Friday night, drive around through campus, and I've told this before, but I'll just share it with you. I've never seen anything like it, where every single intramural field was full of people packed on it. And I'm talking like midnight softball, soccer, frisbee, every single field covered with students just playing sports. So if you're into competing, not even at the highest levels, you just want to join every single league possible, or club sports or all that, and BYU's for you, because you get a pickup game. You get a pickup game in literally any single sport at any hour of the day. Anywhere,
anytime. They love sports. It's because there's not much partying, right? Like
they're not doing
there's not a whole lot going on besides, they're playing sports, they're going to soda shops and getting those types of drinks. And, the thing about it is, like, have you ever heard of the term church ball? Like that's what we do. We go to a local church, and because everyone has a key to the church and you can get in, there's a basketball gym in every single church. And that's where it gets crazy. That's where it gets competitive. And it's a lot of fun, but you can always find something. And I will say BYU is a special place, man. I love every single thing about it. The people were amazing. And they're energetic for their sports and their athletics.
Yeah, they got to let loose somehow. And trust me, like that was a rowdy group going into the stadium. Like I'm talking. Okay, sure. Things have changed. The tone has changed in this town in Provo. Thanks, Jim.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate it, Ryan.
We like to remind the audience that PJ Carlesimo was not a coach first. He was an athlete first. So all of our athletes that we have on as guests, we asked them their best recruiting story. So let's go back to a guy at Scranton Prep who then decided in the late 60s to sign on with Digger Phelps in Fordham. So PJ, the floor is yours. Give us your best recruiting memory from those days.
Man, Ryan, I'm stretching it to be in this category. I mean, I was hardly recruited, but I was actually a better baseball player. Ted Thorne was the baseball coach at Cornell, and truly, he recruited me harder to come play baseball for Cornell than anybody recruited me to come play basketball. I ended up at Fordham on a combo, and the combo, because at the time, Mr. Bach was the head coach. I mean, that's what we call him. And freshmen couldn't play. My freshman year there, Mr. Bach coached the varsity, and then he left to go to Penn State. And then sophomore and junior year, played for Ed Conlon, who was, at that point, the best player who had ever played for Fordham. Charlie Elverton, in my opinion, our classmate, displaced him our senior year. And then Digger came in senior year. And baseball, the guy that I was played for initially was a man by the name of Dan Ronaldo, who had been there for a very long time at Fordham. And Gil McDougall replaced him. So I ended up playing baseball for Gil McDougall. But believe me, neither Gil nor Digger, had they been coaching when I was at prep, would not have recruited me. I was lucky as hell to play for both of them, but it wasn't because I was recruited. Ted Thorne did the best job of recruiting me. Arguably, I should have gone to Cornell.
You just threw more names at us than anybody said. Was a young PJ upset about no transfer portal at that time?
No, man, I was happy. I'll tell you what. You know what? It was good in those days. You felt like you got one choice, and that was it. Hardly anybody transferred. You went where you went. It was great. I mean, we had 3 coaches in 4 years. Johnny Bach freshman year, Ed Conlon sophomore, junior, Digger senior year, and we had 2 baseball coaches. I mean, it was it was unbelievable. But it was the thing you'd never even entered your mind now. Guys are looking to transfer now the second week in September because they don't like the preseason workouts, and you're not getting enough shots in preseason workouts. Guys want to change. So it's I said the portal was the worst thing. I'm wearing a Colgate hat. My son was at Eastern Illinois. I told everybody for 5 years the portal's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. My son Kyle goes in, he ends up at Colgate, ends up in as great a situation as you could ask for. Great school, great coach. He loves it. And he proved that the portal was great for him. But you combine portal and NIL, Rye, it's good I'm old and doing podcasts with you, not coaching anymore. I might be. Danny Hurley can handle it. I can't handle that.
So are you telling me Gil McDougall, Rookie of the Year, 1951, 112 home runs in his career with the Yankees, I think 5 World Series in there.
And
he was
my coach, number 12, and I think I might be wrong, but I swear I had this in the back of my head because I've always been a Yankee fan. I think he's the first guy to make All-Star at all 3 positions. I think he made All-Star at second, short, and third. In different years. I may be wrong, but I literally think what a nice man. He was phenomenal to play for. Phenomenal. The best fun was before, during, after practice, or a rain out sitting on the bench. And the stories, I mean, mind-boggling. I mean, the Yankees of those days, but what a great, great player. Number 12, I believe. But, yeah, it was a dream come true, honestly.
Yes, Monmouth County guy towards the end, Rookie of the Year, 51, and made the All-Star.
Multiple All-Stars. You have facts in front of you. For some reason, I had that in my head. I don't know if it was true. Because
number 12.
They moved him around. They moved him around the infield with different guys with the Yankees, and he was good enough to play all 3 of the positions.
Yeah, All-Star in 52, All-Star 56, 57, 58, 59, and then when I look at the fielding stuff, you're right on it. You're locked in. Made the All-Star team as a third baseman in 52, and then made the All-Star team as a shortstop, where he played the majority of his games in 56, and then in 57, he was an All-Star shortstop again. And I think, he played most of his games at second in 59. So technically, you would say, hey, he played more games there. But he basically split the season pretty evenly there. Incredible. It's nothing like early baseball impressions for all of us. It's the only thing we can hang on to.
What a guy. The best. The best.
Gil McDougall. Well, thanks, PJ. Great story. That's different. That's different from some of the other ones we've gotten. We appreciate it.
It's better than my other ones for sure.
We ask all of our guests this. and I want you to go back to California when you're in high school. And I know that BYU, because I've spent some time out there, and my co-host was LDS. So I don't know how different your recruiting story is going to be, but we ask every player, is there somewhere else you thought you were going to go? What is your best recruiting story?
Yeah, man, the recruiting process was a crazy one. I'd say. I think anytime that you're, the first one in your family to ever be recruited D1, it's like there's so much unknown. You don't know how the process is supposed to go. BYU was one of my first offers. After my junior season, they saw my tape, and they were like, "Man, we think this kid is pretty good. Let's give him an offer, right?" And I went on a visit to BYU. I saw the campus; it was beautiful. The coaches were telling me everything that I needed to hear, and told me I could play right away. And ultimately, I committed right after that visit. And then going into my senior season, I had gotten just a ton of offers, all throughout the Pac-12, into the Big Ten, like Nebraska. And, my dream school was USC. And USC came knocking. They gave me an offer. And that was the one that really had my attention, that I kind of battled with. Like, dang, do I decommit and go to USC, or do I stick with my commitment and go to BYU? And ultimately, USC was going through a coaching change, and I didn't feel like they really wanted me like how BYU wanted me, and I wanted to be the big fish in the small pond, compared to vice versa. So, I've stuck with my commitment, went to BYU, and it was obviously the best decision I could have made.
Before we let you go, I want to go back to think of Lane Johnson. Let's do either the high school one or the JUCO one. Whatever you want to do, your best recruiting story from your past.
I think a funny one. My buddy and I, Wade Williams at Groveton, we were getting recruited together. He ended up going to Northwestern State, but I remember his name was Jason Washington. He was the coach at Rice University, and so he was coming to recruit us. And so, he spent about 45 minutes watching our tape and going, asking us questions, the whole recruiting process. And at the end, he goes, "Guys, very, very last thing, what's my name?" And I didn't. I totally froze up and forgot. But Wade goes, Coach from Rice," and shakes his hand. And he started laughing because obviously he probably does that to a lot of his guys he's recruiting. But I just remember whenever Wade said, Coach from Rice," everybody just kind of broke out and laughed. Yeah, but for me, recruiting wasn't a fun time. I remember being, obviously from a small school. I had 30 kids in my class, and Lufkin, where Des Bryant went, is like 30 minutes up the road. So I can see why I was overlooked, but I knew, I knew where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do. So I had, Rice offered me out of high school. I ended up going to JUCO, and then TCU was really my first main offer. Southern Miss, Oklahoma, and a few others. But once Oklahoma offered, obviously, I pulled the trigger on that. But it was very close with me going to TCU. That's where I was headed.
Yeah, was it tough? Because Groverton's basically down by Houston, right? So
yeah. So
was it tough to become a Sooner?
Yeah, it's about an hour north of Houston. But I credit, my coach from high school, Keith Thomas. He went to Oklahoma back when Switzer was there. And so he knew Merv Johnson, who was recruiting coordinator at the time. And so we made a few trips during the offseason that summer. And during that spring, I played a little bit of tight end as well at Kilgore. And so I had tape on that. And yeah, really, I think without his help at the time, my stepdad, Jimmy Evans, did a lot of road trips to take me to those places. So I was fortunate, with the opportunity, but really credit those guys.